Today's project involves the making of a layout, but the purpose of the project is to show you how I use all of my favorite tools. Let's get started. Ultimately, I want to show you how I use my grid rulers. This is one of the critical pieces to my crafting puzzle that I would love to introduce you to, but in order to get to the rulers, we need to do some other things that involve the use of my favorite tools. One of them is a tool that I actually developed a few years ago called the Accordion pocket file. Now at Club Scrap, we try to scrap efficiently with as few scraps as possible, taking as little of your precious time as possible. And so in order to do that, we do all of the trimming for 8 layouts at a time. So as you're trimming, you are filing all the pieces needed for each individual pair of pages into one of these 4 pockets. So this Accordion pocket file is a critical tool to my organizational success. What I love most about it is that it uses all the vertical space in my room without using any horizontal space in my room. I never seem to have enough of that. But I also added just 2 hook and loop dots to the front of the organizer. And then it sits under one of my other most favorite tools in the world, my Fiskars Guillotine trimmer. If you do not have this trimmer, I can't recommend it enough. I speak from experience. I've been using this model for over 10 years. This is only my 2nd model. The blade is self-sharpening and it's a workhorse, very durable. And I love that it has these vertical guides every 1/4 inch because we do measure here at Club Scrap, and those vertical lines make it really easy to find the number of the measurement I'm looking for. So the other tool that I use quite a bit are page formulas, and these are designed to help use the papers you have in your stash to turn them into layouts where you know the outcome and you know there will be almost little or no waste of paper involved in making the page. So I'm going to use my favorite tools to help create this page, and then I'll show you how I use my rulers to finish that page. So I have the papers needed for this layout listed in a gather recipe. I need one 12 by 12 paper A, and that's going to be this plain slate color from Club Scrap's Kintsugi collection. And then I'm going to use a print also for paper B from the same Kintsugi kit. And then 2C, that's going to be this beautiful navy all from one Club Scrap collection. So each piece has a specific measurement. We need to trim it. So using my favorite tool, the trimmer, I'll place this paper A into the trimmer at 11, and I'll stabilize on the clear bar to hold the paper in place while I cut, then slide down to 10, and then finally 6. So I cut at 11, 10, and 6. Now if you rotate the 6 by 12 so it's horizontal and simply cut at 8 and 4, that's going to give you 3 4x6s. They're all the same size. I'm going to take 2 of these 4x6s and file them in the first pocket, and the other one I'll put in the second pocket. We're only making 2 pages here, but the pocket organizer still keeps everything straight for us. Now I'm going to take this next strip. This is 4x12 right now. I'll cut it at 9, 6, and 3. Now I'm going to take these 4 that are the same. I'll take 3 of them. Those will go in the second pocket, and the first square goes in the first pocket. So if you aren't using pockets, you can follow this recipe with me and just make piles. Then you have these strips. I'm going to put 1 in the first pocket, 1 in the second pocket. That is paper A. There are no scraps for me to deal with. And then I'm going to move on to paper B. This is the print again from this gorgeous Kintsugi collection. If you don't know what Kintsugi is, you can look it up. It's spelled Kintsugi, and it's the beautiful art of repairing broken pottery with the idea that once something is broken and then repaired, it's even more beautiful than it was before when it was whole. And I think that just speaks so clearly of where we're all at in life right now. Okay, so this next piece I'm going to place at 7.5. And then 7, 6.5, and 5. Now take that 5-inch piece and rotate. We'll cut at 11 and 7. Notice I allow all those pieces to pile up. I'll take the largest one here. I'm going to put that in the second pocket or pile. Then you have this smaller rectangle that goes in the first one. And you have this little narrow strip that will also go in the first pocket. Now we have some strips. We have this wider strip that will go in the first pocket, and then 2 narrow strips, 1 in each pocket or pile. And then you have this larger piece that will go in the second pocket. So again, I have no scraps from making this layout. I'm going to get rid of my trimmer, and using my formula, everything needed to assemble the left side of the layout is in the first pocket. Everything needed for the right side of the layout is in the second one. So I'll spread out my 2 base pages in front of me side by side. And I'll use this as my assembly guide. We do this with all of our monthly kits too. I mean, every kit has its own little personalized assembly guide. And I'm going to dry fit these components onto my layout. Everything out of pocket 1 goes here. So I can take, let's see, this larger strip, and then it's going to be another smaller one in a contrasting color, nested with yet another one. Looks nice. 2 vertical photo mats, 1 larger framed with a square in the middle. This one, maybe I can put plain side up and use it as a little opportunity for journaling. Now, if I take this other pocket and empty it, this large section here will go across the bottom of this page, and then I will nest with another strip. Here we have this pretty layered frame, and we have 3 pieces that can go along here. There's your layout. Now, we haven't glued anything down. That is where my rulers come in. So this is the real meat of the presentation. So you're going to love how professional all of this will allow me to be as I complete these pages. Now, have you ever made a page where you've adhered something onto the layout, and when you walk away from it and come back, you realize you've attached it crooked to the page? That drives me crazy. So enter the 3x14 grid ruler from Club Scrap. It has cubes on it, and every cube on the ruler represents 1/8 of an inch. So there are 8 cubes for every inch. Either way, even if you don't use this for measuring, you can still use the grid itself for leveling. Okay, so measuring is one thing, leveling is another. Let's talk about leveling for a minute. And I apologize if there's glare from my lighting. We need light, but sometimes it does cause glare. So let's just say I want to attach this 1/4 of an inch from the left edge of this layout, and I want this strip to be perfectly level, not heading up or downhill. So if the ruler is right up against the layout without touching it, just against it, that's at 0 inches, right? So then if I do it 1 cube, that first dashed line on my ruler takes me to 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Then if I bring it in again to the next solid line, which is now 2 cubes in, I am 1/4 of an inch from the edge. That was my desired measurement, but let's say I could keep going. Now I'm 3/8 from the edge, 1/2 inch from the edge, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, 1 inch. So remember when you were little, I remember this, when I was taught when I want to draw a straight line, I had to start here. Let's say I mark that at 1 inch, then I go to the middle and I mark 1 inch, then I go to the bottom and mark 1 inch, and then I can connect those lines. In this case, the ruler does all that work for me. So if I have the ruler positioned here, I'm exactly 1 inch from the edge and I'm level and perfect. I don't have to do that first step. Okay, so back to our project of attaching this 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Got my ruler positioned. I'll bring in another favorite tool. This is my Adhesive Transfer Gun, otherwise known as an ATG. It's the fastest way to adhere anything. The secret is to rest the paper against the edge of the ruler and drop it into place. Okay, then I have this perfectly placed. I know it's level. It's not running downhill. It's not running uphill or tilted in an unattractive way. Using that as my guide now, I can rest my next strip right against it and drop it into place. Just make sure it's nice. Now to attach this piece, it's the same width as my adhesive. I use the 1/2 inch Adhesive Transfer Gun adhesive. So now I'm going to grab another favorite tool of mine, and it's my needle tipped glue applicator. It stores our bookbinding glue, and I'll just make a squiggle line across this strip, and I can lay this in the middle of the 1 inch strip I had before. And if I wanted to, I could still again use my ruler. Because it's a wet glue, I have an opportunity to double check that this is exactly centered and level on that strip. Now I've built this really pretty left edge here. Now next I have this guy I want to center onto the larger panel. You can use the 3x14, or I also have a smaller size that I like for these smaller projects. This is a 2x8. So if I take this 2x8, from one end it's 0 to 8, and the other it goes 4, 0, 0, 4. So that way, if I place this onto my object, and this is 5 inches wide, so the center is going to give me a reading of 2.5 inches from the left edge and also the right edge. That way I know where my center is, and then I can also center this. Now this is 4 inches wide, so my reading on the left will be 2, and it will match on the right also at 2. Now what about the distance between the edge and the little mat? Well, it looks like it just needs to be 1/2 inch. So I'm exactly 1/2 inch from the bottom edge of the mat, 1/2 inch in on both sides because I'm all centered up nicely. So basically I'm going to leave my ruler right where it was, apply adhesive to my rectangle, push down again on the ruler, rest it on the edge, and drop. Now it's perfectly centered. Again, my tendency would be to be off a little bit, and especially with something with such a wide reveal, it's really nice to have that officially centered. Now, let's just say I want to attach this so it's right about here, and I can use this for notating some journaling on there. Once again, I can use my grid ruler. Maybe I'll use the 3x14 here, and make sure that this piece is level and not running the wrong direction. I'll put adhesive now, this time on the printed side, and just put that flush with the right edge of the page here. Nice. Then when I come back and add this nested frame, if I want, I can also just make sure I'm level here. Maybe I wanted 1/4 inch from the bottom edge, and I want it kind of toward the left. Boom. Okay, now we have these 2 vertical mats. They're angled. And one of the things, you know, again, just a layout tip, I'd like to avoid putting a corner of something along the edge of something else. That creates an unattractive tangent. Designers try to avoid those. So to avoid tangents, if you're going to angle your photo mat, I like to raise one, lower one, so they're different heights, and then overlap slightly, and that removes all tangents. So this is very attractive. I'll flip those. I don't need a ruler for this. Just make sure I don't have corners touching corners. Nice, one's higher than the other. They're both tilted and slightly overlapping. Boom. I was careful about adhesive placement so I can still get my photo underneath here. This is, again, an opportunity to use my ruler to center. So I'll grab my 2x8 and get that all centered up at 3.5 on each side. And I think, again, 1/2 inch from the edges is going to be perfect. So now I've got my plan in place. If you're a card maker, don't make cards without the 2x8. It's such a handy little guy. I even have one that's 1/2 inch by 6 inches. This is for on the go. You know, it even has a little keyring holder on it, so you can take it with you. You can measure anytime, any place, for any reason. Okay, so I've got this kind of centered up on there, which is nice. Now, once again, too, I can use my bookbinding glue from my needle tip applicator to center this. I know it's going to be 1/4 inch from the edge of the strip, so now I know it's perfectly centered and straight. Oh, what a joy. And it doesn't take a lot of extra time to take this extra step, honestly. It really, really doesn't. Attach this printed piece here. This piece goes on next. Now I sort of, in my diagram, I sort of have these on toward the left, but I just want to show you how you would go about centering these 3 pieces onto the base page. With your ruler, you can find the 0 center again, and then because my layout is 12 inches wide, I'm going to find a 6 needs to be the measurement on both sides. Then I know I am centered right where I belong. Now the first piece I apply with adhesive is going to be the center one. So that's centered at 1.5 on each side. So I'll take my ATG tool, find my 1.5 on each side, and drop. So I rest against the edge of the ruler and drop it. Now all I need to do is apply adhesive to the other 2 pieces. Make sure my center is centered. Lay it next to, I'm going to separate this by 1/8 inch, which is 1 cube on the ruler. And same here, 1 cube on the ruler. All that's left is to attach this larger piece. So I will, if you want, you can still use anything to help make sure it's level and spaced the way you want it. Nice. Very professional looking page. I hope you agree. And that was, I don't know when the last time is that you made a page completed in about less than 15 minutes, really. And I took my time explaining things. I mean, this can go very, very quickly for you. And if you're one who spends an hour or more, or even days putting one double page spread together, this is a great solution. The only thing missing on this layout is pictures. I want to show you one more ruler trick that I use all the time to help me finish my layouts. I use the 8x8 grid ruler for this job. And what it does is allows me to figure out if cropping a photo into a certain spot is going to work. Now I have some pictures that I took from a trip last year actually. I was lucky enough to go to Germany and to the Moselle Valley and visit this beautiful castle in Bernkastel, or they say Bernkastel. And I have all these pictures. So I've never made this layout before. I had no plan. I just kind of went with it. And now I'm going to go ahead and just select some pictures. Well, of course, I want me and my husband in one of them. So that's, here we are there. This is kind of cool. It's a beautiful view. And then this, oh yes, we need to be able to see this. I think this might work if I split it over these two. Oh, gosh, that was just so beautiful. Okay, well, I wonder if this will fit into this space. Well, how do I know? Well, if I take my grid ruler and I hover over this rectangle, and the reading I get is 3x4. So my picture should be a 1/4 inch less than that. So 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. Let's take this over to the picture. Look at that. Here's 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. So look, I can get all of everything that I need out of this picture cropped to fit into this space. These are 4x6, therefore I only need to take a 1/4 inch off the bottom and side of each of those. What about this one? 3 3/4. It's going to take me right about there. 2 3/4. I can come up a little bit. Ooh, that's going to be very nice. All right, I'm going to quick trim these pictures to these sizes. Okay, so now I have all of my pictures trimmed for this beautiful layout. Look at that. Look how they all fit. So lovely. I just trimmed this photo in half and then to the 2 3/4 inch width. I got my height first and then trimmed so that this is one picture spread out over 2 mats. I like the balance that this creates, but look, I still have a little bit more space on this layout, and that's when you can use the grid ruler once again. Maybe just measure here. Like, what if I wanted to put a picture right here that's the same height as this? It could be 4x5. All right, here I have a really beautiful picture. I'm going to trim this to 4x5. And look, that fits in there so nice. I have all of these other pictures. Like, maybe I could check to see if this little house here would fit maybe into this area. I'll quick do that. How about 3x4? I'm gonna quick trim this. And there it is, fitting nicely in there as well. So you've got your cast of characters here. Your main characters get those larger photos, those larger mats. Your supporting actors and actresses are matted also, but smaller, and then you can even fill in further with additional pictures. This method of scrapbooking has kept me up to date for years, as well as many Club Scrap members. So I really hope you're inspired to give these rulers a try. In fact, I really want to get these in your hands, and so I've put together a value pack. You can get all 3 rulers at a value pack discount, so check our website for that. And then we also just released this little guy, this 1.5x6. It's only $5.99 if you're a member. So this is also a really affordable piece, and you can't go wrong with having all 3 of these in your stash. Now I have a lot more ruler tips. This is basically just Rulers 101. There are so many more things I do with my rulers, including using the angles, combining them. I use them in book binding with all kinds of clever tips as well. So down the road, I hope to do a Rulers 201 for you, but for now, it's time to master these skills so that you can become a pro. Now, the best way to utilize all of the things that I showed you today is by being a Club Scrap member. We send a page kit every month that creates 8 12x12 layouts using the very methods that I showed you. And then you can use your new rulers to help you make beautiful, professional looking finished pages, add your photos in no time.